So we've just spoke about the static keyword, and I say that either a method or a property or even a class, actually, we can annotate. Basically, you saw that we could say here, I think before, class or static class foo or goo, for example, right? So I said that we don't need an instance of the class itself to be able to access this. But why is this, right? So the main reason really is that, let's say that in here we have Alex. So we have Alex, we have Jamila. Now, let me just delete all of this, actually. Let's just delete all of this. And within person, let's basically have a no arg constructor. So let's just have a no arg constructor. Oops. So constructor. So in here, select none. And in here, let's just remove the static keyword just for a second. Just for a second. And if I say count plus plus in here. So this is a property that belongs to the instance itself and not the class, right? And even though it's public, so we shouldn't have instance fields as public. But if I go to main in here, and let's say that we have a for I, and in here we're going to say for I less than 1 million. Let's say 1 million. And within this for loop, if I say new person, I just want to say new person. Now this count variable, so remember about the stack and how it works, how we basically store all of these fields in memory. So we'll have 1,000. So we'll have 1 million of these, literally 1 million, right? So you can see that we are wasting memory. So if it's like this, we are wasting memory, but at the same time, this doesn't belong to the class, right? So if I run this, this will consume a lot of memory because this count field right here will be allocated 1 million times. Whereas if this is now static, so static, and we say count plus plus, so public static int count. Now this, so when we say new person, it just allocates count once because it belongs to the class itself, right? So we create this variable right here in memory once, and then all these new instances, so 1 million instances, they will have access to the exact same count. So this is the benefit of using static keyword. So it's mainly for memory management. Now, okay, so if this makes sense, you might be saying, okay, so should I basically have everything as static? Well, the answer is no. The answer is no. And later on, when we start testing things and when you start to learn about the right way of building software, you realize that you shouldn't use static for everything, right? So, and ideally, you should attach a static either to a property or a method if you're writing, for example, a utility class and they are not supposed to change. If a method, for example, is not using any instance variable, or maybe if there is some code that needs to be shared around without having to create an instance. Now, if this doesn't really make sense, don't worry, because I will show you exactly what this means throughout this course. I'll show you when to use static, when not to use static. But for now, what I say is try and not use static for everything, right? So, for example, for instance fields right here, then this makes complete sense. If you want to track how many instances you have for a particular class, then this makes sense, right? So here, instead of you creating 1,000 of or 1 million that we had in here, so 1 million that we had in here, then you can just basically create one field, put the static keyword, and job done. Also, sometimes people use static for initialization, right? So if you have a list or an array which can be shared amongst a class, instead of you having to create a new instance for it, then you can use static. But as I just said, static mainly is for performance, And there was a Stack Overflow a question, which I'm going to link actually, and it says, one rule of thumb is ask yourself, does it make sense to call this method even if no object has been constructed yet? If so, it should definitely be static. Now let me show you. So here, have a look. Math dot py, for example, pow, abs. So all of these are static. Have a look. So I don't have to create an instance for it in order to invoke this method. Have a look. Public static double. So I think in fact all of these are static. So if I click on structure and log, seal, floor, random, so on and so forth. Let's have a look at the string class, for example. So here I'm going to say string dot join value of. So all of these are static. So here integer, I think you saw integer dot parse int before. So this is also, oops, let me go into it. It's also static. I don't need an instance for it in order to use this method. So you can see how things are now coming together. So hopefully this answers the question. If not, please let me know. Otherwise, let's move on.